I mean, just take the nitrogen, for example. Like this is something we've been talking about pretty heavily, but as good as nitrogen is, as spicy as nitrogen is,
Rawr.
you can overdo it real quick. Like if you're not careful with it, especially if you're using, a non-organic fertilizer.
Yo, it's AJ with Hippie Fertilizing on the More Than Grass podcast. Back again with Justin from Grill Pond Gardens. This is the part 2. Okay, we started talking a bit about the alchemy of air. So let's jump into it, Justin.
Man, I'm super excited to be back again. I have so much fun being on this podcast with you, and we get to talk about such exciting topics.
I agree, and I love you being here, and I love the topics that we're bringing up, because until you and I have started chopping it up like at your shop, we don't really hear about these things too often.
No, and it's such important things to talk about. I mean, there's so many applications to both how we can, alter how we're living our own lives to be better stewards to ourselves and the environment, but things that we can affect outside of our lives. If we are all changing the way we practice and do things, bigger things are going to change.
Right. And fortunately, I see a lot of good changes. Regenerative agriculture there's more awareness of it. There is more awareness of like the importance of soil biology. And like we were talking about last time, nitrogen cycles, all sorts of stuff. But to jump back in The Alchemy of Air is a really cool book if you are a person that is interested in history. It even gives you quite an interesting, really specific peek into German history around World War I and World War II, and how the advent of turning air into bread also, I would say, turned air into fire.
Yeah.
Right? In explosives.
Dude, so one, I thought this book was pure fascinating. It was just outstanding. And like the process to take air and be able to extract nitrogen out of it, I never would have been like, this is how we're going to do this. Like, who thinks so? So for those of you that don't know, the process to take air and turn that air into the different elements that it is they freeze it. They take air, get it really freaking cold, and then they gently warm it back up to the specific temperature that which nitrogen goes from a liquid back into a gas. And then they have pure nitrogen. It's crazy. Like who was like, hey, let's get a really big chiller. Let's just like chill the air down and see if it turns into a liquid. And then let's warm it right back up and let's pull nitrogen out of it. Like how do you come up with this stuff?
I agree, right? That is some definitely like epiphany.
Yeah.
Had to come from some other inspiration.
No, it's crazy
kind of thing, right?
It's so fascinating, but it's like, damn, these people who were brilliant, man, like truly brilliant people.
Right. It's absolutely incredible, and incredible to think. I kind of like to think of things, how big can I go out and on top of the world, let's say, and get this view from way up here to see things, because normally we see things right in front of us. Right. And that's not very far.
No.
Not very far at all. And some of us, have a vision for seeing like as far as we can throw things, which is a bit further.
Right.
But then to take that view, because to get even the thought that they mentioned in the book that there's these factories all over the world now.
Oh, all over the world.
Right. Producing mass amounts of nitrogen.
Yeah.
And it's going out everywhere and turning into fertilizer. A little side note for those who don't know. Okay. Yes, we talk about grass. We talk about lawns. The U.S. lawn is as big, if you put it together, as all the corn in the United States as well.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a huge impact, right? So there's that.
Not only is it the largest, it's the most heavily irrigated thing on earth. Nothing is
so even more than crops that we eat for food.
Yeah.
Right. Irrigated, fertilized. There's not very hardly any regulation
None.
on. None really.
Unless you live in like a water stricken area like Phoenix or something, and like along the Colorado River Basin area, like you probably are not dealing with a day in and day out water restrictions.
I'm not even talking about irrigation. Okay. I'm talking about the stuff we can go buy from your local, hardware store. And people will talk about, well, the farmers do this and that and the other. Okay. That's true. There's truth to that. But also as a homeowner or in a person who has a lawn, it's basically your micro ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Okay. And every lawn collectively creates a little bit bigger of an ecosystem. Then you have neighborhoods, towns, whatever, the ecosystem gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And we impact that, and there's no regulation. I fix lawns all the time. Bob, Dick, and Harry are like, well, I treated it with all this stuff and nothing ever came back. I'm like, dude, you put that much on your lawn, dude. And then you did it again thinking it was going to fix the problem when it didn't do it the first time.
I mean, just take the nitrogen, for example. Like, this is something we've been talking about pretty heavily. But as good as nitrogen is, as spicy as nitrogen is, you can overdo it real quick. Like, if you're not careful with it, especially if you're using, a non-organic fertilizer. If you go out, I mean, even with organic fertilizers, the tolerance is quite a bit higher, but even with organic fertilizers, if you put too much nitrogen out there, you can kill stuff.
And there's still salts in organic fertilizer, right? Yeah. Chicken manure has salts in it. Yeah, you burn stuff up real quick. I've taken a bag of Microlife Ultimate and destroyed a whole section of my lawn. Yeah. I'll tell you what, it came back perfect the next year.
Now, it is a lot more challenging to do with, I think, an organic approach. You've got more forgiveness built into the product than you do with a chemical product.
And it comes back way better on its own than with a chemical product. Yeah. No, you got to do a lot more work to bring it back with a synthetic product. Yeah. But to dive back into like the Haber-Bosch system, how much fertilizer is produced, and one of the things he talks about is the impact. What we were kind of getting into on the end of the last episode was stuff like all the dead zones.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Kind of quick rundown on dead zones. That is eutrophication. It's aquatic hypoxia. It takes all the oxygen out of a body of water and literally chokes things out, or it creates such an abundance of algae that it prevents light from going down.
Right.
And helping other things utilize photosynthesis and things like that. So it has a wide array of disruption on these areas.
Yeah.
So why and how can we start asking the question and answering the question of, since we know we have these dead zones, we have bodies of water that are very high in nitrates. Right. So if it's there too, how could we then essentially filter out that water, take out the nitrates to utilize somewhere else? And here's a thought. Okay. Since it's in the ocean, a lot of these places, there's other minerals in the ocean. Like, the ocean has every mineral we need for everything. Yeah. Right. So if we're extracting it from this source, there's a potential that it would be I want to say like a healthier source.
Right.
Because then you're going to have all these other micronutrients potentially with it.
Yeah.
Be fascinating. Right.
So what would be interesting is if some enterprising person figured out a way to harness this incredible nutrient load that's coming down to the estuaries and mouths of rivers, and pulling that water, processing it, and extracting this overabundance of these minerals, nitrogen, and such that are coming down as runoff from farms that are killing these ecosystems, taking it out, removing it from the ecosystem, and then feeding it back into the top of the cycle at our farms. Like, that would be
our farms, our lawns, awesome. Right? Yeah. Our gardens, all the above. Because like I was telling you earlier, why can we not have this Garden of Eden kind of thing, or the Hanging Gardens of Alexandria? We have technology.
We can have those things. And lucky for us, we live in a free market economy where really the market's going to produce what we want it to produce and what we allow it to produce.
Absolutely.
Right? As us as consumers, if we all adopt the practice of buying consumer goods that fit a system that we know is going to improve our own health, but also improve our environment, the free market is going to adjust and start producing more and more things that fit that model.
And it has been doing that. There is much more organic products and fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
There's even, my least favorite topic in lawn care is killing weeds. But there is things like the Axe that you sell.
Right.
That's a natural, very effective herbicide.
Very effective. And it's not going to cause harmful runoff. Like, this is probably one of the easiest things that we can control just by even our own user practices, right? And if you take and you go get you a bag of Scott's, whatever, right?
Bag of knots.
If you put too much of that stuff down, one, you're very likely to burn and cause detriment to your own lawn. But two, you're very, very likely to have runoff. And all that material is not just going to sit in your yard. It's going to run off into our estuaries, into our bay systems, and it's going to cause problems.
Well, to go back though to the making of better products, right?
Right.
And weed killer. I mentioned the Axe.
Yeah.
Okay, there's also Fiesta weed killer, which is iron-based.
Iron-based.
Dude, and it works. I've tested it on many lawns and seen what it does. And you've known me since before I got into this side of the business. I've never been a fan of killing weeds, really. Right? I mean, pretty much.
Pretty much. I mean, you either pull them or you feed your way through it.
Yes, I have. Thank you for saying that. But Fiesta weed killer?
Yeah.
Dude, that is something on the market I can get behind, because it's like, we wanted a better way.
Right.
I was searching for a better way, and I found one that is highly effective.
Yeah.
So you're so right about what we ask for, we're going to get.
Yeah.
And we need to, I think, collectively learn a little more, be more aware, so that we even know what to ask for. Because I think that's a part of the market and what drives us and things like that. Right. It's just a lack of knowing, a lack of awareness. I'm not trying to hate on a bunch of people who say, "Oh, you're doing this wrong." I was doing things wrong for a long time.
But there's been a very big awakening, a movement, I would say, where people are waking up to these issues, and then we're seeing things that is pushing the market back in the other direction. I think in the past 10 years, there's been so much movement into an organic approach to doing things, or at least a chemical-free practice. It's been terrific. I mean, there's whole farming systems now that are producing no-till soil products. They're building soil, and they're not tilling it up, and half of their soil runs down to the next river system. We've got good practices that are developing because we as consumers are saying, hey, we want something better. We're not going to buy your trash product. We're going to buy good stuff. So if you don't produce us good stuff, we're going to buy it from somebody else.
Yes. And one of these days, I want to fine tooth comb, whatever, the U.S. Farm Bill.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what's available too is kind of forced on them.
Right.
So it's forced on us.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't know it. Really.
So this is where we as a broader society, we needed to, I guess you're gonna have to get a little bit politically engaged, right? I don't want to get too in the weeds on left and right, all that stuff. But I do want to get in the weeds on what's impacting our food supply.
I don't think left and right matters.
It does.
Okay. What really matters though is us being able to, and taking the time to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. really have the ability to make a better informed decision, because there's a lot of decisions that we don't make because simply just because we don't know.
We don't know.
And we see this
power.
Just scaling back to like lawn care. I know we're going to beat that dead horse many times because that's what we're in.
Right.
But I know you hear the question. I hear the question. Well, how do I kill the weeds? Rarely does someone say, well, how do I improve the turf? How do I improve the soil? Right? How we ask a question is vastly different. And oftentimes we don't know the question to ask.
Right.
Right.
Well, like, let's dive into weeds. All right. Weeds is, a blanket term that we use for basically all the undesirable plants that we don't want to see in our turf grasses.
Correct.
And some other places. Right. But generally speaking, weeds have historically in our environment served an incredibly beneficial service, right?
Yes.
They go into areas that are harsh, they're hellish. No other plants want to grow there. But you know what? That weed's going to figure out how to grow in that little tiny crack in the concrete that nobody wants it to be in, because it was developed over thousands of years to be able to exist in harsh, undesirable places. They're nature's first line in taking an arid environment and turning it into a lush soil that can support a complex ecosystem with grasses and trees. But you've got to have the weeds first. So when you look at your yard and you're like, hey, why is my yard covered in weeds? I'm like, well, fool, you've got a crappy ecosystem. You got no soil. You got no development. We need to feed that soil.
And I kind of want to suggest a little bit of a paradigm shift here, is that maybe nature is trying to do for us what is most suitable for the area.
Could be.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. Like, we're going to get off onto this topic soon, very soon. But to jump back into things like the advent of turning air into bread. These huge plants that are really unseen, moving fertilizer all across the world. What they say, and I know it's true, and you said it, is now there's not one of us who doesn't have exposure to essentially synthetic nitrogen.
It's everywhere.
In one way or another. And it gets leached into water, it gets leached out of soil. And certain combinations, like what is it? Nitric oxide?
Yeah.
That's when it becomes more of a harmful greenhouse gas.
Yeah.
But what I've seen in fertilizer, and I love this, I get super excited to know that they have bonded the nitrogen with carbon, the other, like one of the most
building block of life right there.
Building block of life. It's in all of us. It's in basically all of living things as well. And so it helps it to not get leached out, to not volatilize. So when we're looking at products, organic products, in a sense, are amino acids.
Yeah.
Right. And then they go through this process in the soil, get converted into nitrogen, and then boom, into the plant, back into amino acids.
Right.
Right. Whereas they call them synthetic organics.
Yeah.
Stuff like urea methylene and urea formaldehyde. I know it sounds funky, but it's highly effective and a true slow release fertilizer.
Right.
So we are moving ahead in kind of slowing down some of the negative processes and improving the positive processes. So if those things are already bonded together, it is reducing the things that make these negative environmental impacts, right? So I want to encourage people to look at those sort of things on your products. Who would have thought, when you're looking at nitrogen sources, it has underneath the box, right? You got NPK, your analysis, and then underneath it says where your nitrogen's derived from.
Right.
Right. And then it says slowly available nitrogen, or water soluble nitrogen, water insoluble nitrogen. And what we want to look for is to make sure that we are moving the water insoluble nitrogen up because generally what that also means, if you see the nitrogen source being, again, urea methylene or urea formaldehyde or other natural products like alfalfa meal, the back guano, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So as there is this huge detrimental thing going on with nitrogen, we are advancing and we're seeing very positive impact. And I just see it on our little micro ecosystems.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, how do we take, all of this incredible discussion? How do we apply this to our little microbiome in our own backyard, our own front yard, and our own little subdivision? How do we take this information and make a difference, right? Like, us as individuals, we're a tiny piece in this big system, right? But like our little tiny piece can make a little impact for our own health, our own environment. And then collectively, we can all, get on this train and we can make a difference for the whole world, right?
Yes. And impact it. Because there isn't, just like I said in the last episode, I don't truly believe in like the limited resources and the scarcity as it's propaganda to us. Dude, this world is abundant.
It is so abundant.
Abundant and beautiful, like the air we breathe.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's limited is people's imagination to get creative. We got to get creative. The earth will provide it.
Right. It's already here, and we are getting creative. We're making all kinds of cool stuff all the time. And a thought that I have with this is you said something about like animal manure, there not being quite enough for it to be used as like the nitrogen source on such a scale.
Right. So, the scale is the problem part.
So here's where I want to like kind of argue that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. We have these commercialized cattle farming and stuff like that. And it gets knocked on because of the way that those places often impact its immediate environment. Yeah. And again, everything trickles out all over the place. Me being a lover of soil, I'm thinking, okay, well, how can we get these guys over here with cattle and pigs and chickens and whatever to better utilize their waste and incorporate it with composting systems, right, to put it back into the soil. And these things are being done.
Oh, yeah. I've seen this. I mean, when I was in school, like we, even just like at our local ag facility, we had this giant trailer attachment thing that would go on the back of a tractor, and all of the animal waste from all the animals in the barn would go into this thing, and then it would drive the tractor through the field and just spread it everywhere, and then it would feed the cattle, the chickens, the whatever. But like this is also happening on mass scale. It is. You've got these big feedlots and such, and they've got farms right next to them, and they're getting all this free fertilizer from this animal waste that's going right back onto those fields. Like it is happening, but we need more of that happening.
An increased efficiency.
Yeah.
Right. For the scale, because again, it's about understanding how can we close the loop.
Yeah.
Right. Because there is a lot of waste, a lot of runoff. And just like how they talk about environmentally and climate change capturing carbon, right? It's a big thing.
Yeah.
And
you know what the best thing is at capturing carbon?
What's that?
Plants.
Absolutely.
Have you seen the model that shows the amount of harmful carbon being like as it works around the globe, and every single spring, whenever the corn farms and all the bread basket in the United States, their production or their plants start growing, it's like the whole United States is just and releases all this oxygen. It sucks in all this carbon. It's freaking amazing.
Really?
Dude.
No, I haven't seen that.
Look it up. There's a video on this. It'll show you like they can track the oxygen and carbon emissions and like how much of it's in the atmosphere. And it is like the earth just takes this big breath and releases. It's so cool.
So thank you for sharing that. 'Cause that right there, I do know that plants hold a lot of carbon, right? That's like the whole makeup a huge part of the makeup of trees and plants and things like that. But to see it in that way, then it's like, okay, instead of fighting this war over here, how about let's support this over here? I've brought it up before. We live next to Clear Lake, which is next to Exploration Green, which, and I haven't done tons of research or anything like that, but in our immediate area, it is the biggest project of its kind.
Oh, it's huge.
To create an environment where an ecosystem works with nature and with us, right? And it should really be something that's like across the map.
Oh, wait.
Right.
Finding ways to live in balance with Earth. I think that whether you are spiritual, religious, whatever, like I think everybody can get on board with, hey,
or if you love technology
of our environment, like let's live in harmony with the environment. Let's not just manipulate everything to our will. Like let's figure out how to live peacefully in an environment where the environment supports us and we support it.
Right. Cohesively. Oh man. So to see that and to walk around there at night and the life that's going on, and even in the hot dog days of summer, it has like a peacefulness to it.
Yeah.
Versus walking around a space that doesn't have all that greenery.
And I bet it's a lot cooler too.
It's a little bit cooler. It's still hot and muggy and miserable.
Well, it is Texas.
Right, absolutely.
Cooler can only be used so much.
But even though it's not, it is a little cooler, it is, but it just has also a different feeling. That's like a little energizing, even in the heat. And
do you walk around barefoot out there?
No. Dude. I should be more down to earth.
Come on, you need to do some earthing. Come on, get those free electrons moving, man.
Toes, man. Baby feet. But you're absolutely right. And earthing is cool. I know it's also a real thing. So how can we learn to capture and recycle things on a huge scale? Because the process of making things is there.
Yeah.
Right? So how can we also turn our sights on the process of taking the things that are already there and reusing them better? And then
I mean, so like I know my wife and I, we're very avid recyclers, and there's only like, you as an individual, you can choose to do recycling, and that is freaking awesome. And we do that. But there has been a bit of a debate and discussion going on about what actually happens to that material. Right. And so this is where it's more like, the bigger government systems at place where we do have to speak up and say, hey, we're demanding that we need a better option. Like what you're doing is not good enough. Like we need something more robust, more feasible for the environment, making sure that those things that we are recycling are actually getting used, not going back into a landfill.
So you and I talked about this the other day. I gotta wrap this up real quick, but I thought for the next one is, why can't we just make more and more of our products to where they'll naturally break down over a shorter amount of time, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years, depending on the product and what have you. But we are getting to the end of this section. Thank you so much for watching. And Justin, again, where are you at?
So Grippon Gardens is in the heart of Leak City, right off of Highway 96 and Pecan Orchard Road. Our address is 2060 Pecan Orchard Road. Google us, Apple Map us, Waze us, whatever. It's all there. And come by. We'll help you guys get jiggy with some plants. We'll do the organics. We'll do the whole thing.
Yeah, and they have the best coffee in town. Go get some full bean experience.
Farm to table.
Yeah.
All of our coffee is bought with a handshake from a farm. And it is clean like you wouldn't believe.
It is so delightful. Anyway, and I'm AJ with Hippie Fertilizing. This is the More Than Grass podcast. Thank you for watching. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Peace. Hey everybody, it's AJ with Hippie Fertilizing. We are here to help fix your lawn. Does it currently look brown, dead, dry, patchy? We'll call a hippie. we can help turn it around. And one of the best ways to do that is with our Hippie Juice Plus application to revitalize your soil, your turf, and help give you a lush green lawn you're looking for. Please fill out our contact form at hippiefertilizing.com, because nobody knows grass like a hippie. Peace.